We're all about student service and solutions, and here are a few upcoming events we want to tell you about this week. Inquiry-based learning to teach math sets high expectations and provides supports for all students. In this professional development, teachers will experience hands-on tasks that require students to think and construct mathematics. You'll have opportunities to observe how to connect ideas and ask the right questions. Then you'll develop the skills and practices necessary for inquiry-based learning. Process-based art gives children opportunities to experiment, create, build, make decisions, and plan. By connecting process-based art to authentic writing opportunities, engaged young writers increase the fine motor skills that are necessary for developing them as writers. In this session, we'll explore how art can be successfully integrated into an early childhood classroom while aligning to the pre-kindergarten guidelines. On February 4th, a workshop for deaf and hard of hearing professionals. Behavior management in DHH students is challenging and often is reward and consequence driven due to their unique needs. But what if it were approached in a different way that truly met students' needs and helped create a safe place for children with hearing impairments to express themselves? Come and experience behavior management for DHH students in a new way and turn your classroom into an exciting, engaging, and knowledge-filled safe space. If you're interested in any of our upcoming events, go to our website, region10.org, and click on the Workshop Registration tab at the top. Also, click around the homepage while you're there, and thanks for all you do to serve students.
We're excited to tell you about the healthy options available in our new Parks Pantry. You'll note in the back corner of our Region 10 Cafe that we now offer dozens of fresh, delicious food and beverage choices, all available to you anytime you're on our Abrams campus. View nutrition and calorie facts before you purchase. After making your selection, scan your item at the kiosk. It accepts debit or credit cards as well as Apple Pay. If using cash, you may insert bills into the kiosk and load the amount on a Parks Pantry key tag by first scanning a key tag located on the upper right of the kiosk and providing your name and email address. It's important to know that the machine will not provide change, so any unused balance on your key tag will be available for use at a later time on your next visit to Region 10. Thank you for listening to this message, and we hope you enjoy your
Just so you know, it's 42%.
let's talk about, I get a lot of questions, can we use our Title III funds for such and such? And this is the ABCS, not the ABCs. The ABCSs of using Title III funds. So when you're getting ready to, you're asking yourself the question, can we use Title III funds? And please do not hesitate to ask me. That's what I'm here for if you're not sure. But this can kind of help you get your brain around it. So first, is it addressed in the application? So you filled out your application and submitted it back in August, September. And you say, can I purchase textbooks, Spanish textbooks with this? The first question is going to be, was that in your application? If it's not in your application as one of the activities you're going to use the funds for, then you would have to amend your application. And that goes through Allison Fears, our Assistant Director of Federal Programs. But again, you can contact me and I can put you in contact with her. So any purchase must be addressed in your application. Second, it benefits students that are identified as EL and PEAMS. Actually, in PEAMS, they still use LEP, drives me crazy. So it has to benefit ELs and ELs only. The costs are necessary and reasonable. They give you kind of a context for this one. Out-of-state travel. Let's say there's a conference that you want to send your staff members to that's out of state. So that's going to require travel money, hotel, food, etc. TEA is not going to allow you to send 10 people. 2, probably with the expectation that they come back to turn it around, because sending 10 would not be reasonable. But to send 2 to bring it back to your district, you can make that's justifiable. So it has to be necessary, reasonable. And lastly, supplement, not supplant. So if it's anything you've used any other funds for at any time, you can't now supplement, you cannot supplant that with Title III. It would have to be something that no other funds have been used for. So, yes, and I'm pulling up I forgot that I had some description of supplement underneath. Yes, ma'am. Well, that's actually the way you want to do it. You don't want to be super specific. So let's say in your application for next year and we will have some application work sessions, and I'll give the same advice then as you're filling out your application. And there's one area that says, computer programs, technology, that kind of thing. And so what you want to say is we're going to use funds to purchase software. You do not want to say we're going to use funds to purchase Rosetta Stone. Because as soon as you've done that, that's the only thing you can purchase. So you really want to keep it kind of general in that respect. And if it's too general, well, you can always run that by, but does that kind of make sense? So if your application says for additional classroom resources, would you be able to buy those textbooks? Yes, even though it's not specific, it's still covered under additional classroom resources. Another question. Title III, isn't it fun? I do let you spend your money sometimes. Any other questions about that? I have the supplement not supplant rules, guidelines up there. In the absence of Title III funds, would the activity be implemented? If it would be implemented, you can't use Title III because that's supplanting. Is it above and beyond how the LEA ensures equitable access to education? Remember, this is think of it this way. You have your state funds and your local funds. That's the ice cream on the sundae. Your Title I, Title II, that's the whipped cream. Title III is the cherry on top. It's that extra step, or jimmies if you prefer jimmies. Do they call them jimmies in Texas? Sprinkles in Texas. They're jimmies back east, sorry. So it's the cherry, making fun of me. We also called this room the pecan room when I came in, and then I remembered I was in Texas and it's pecan. So well, only ELs and immigrants benefit from these funds. So that's all the supplement, not supplant. Okay, hopefully you have your devices up because I'm going to take you to a real quick questionnaire here in a minute. We have some changes that are coming in Chapter 80. Well, we have several changes that are coming in Chapter 89 in 1920, school year 1920. we've been talking about them the last couple of years, but this one is, this one makes me happy. So we've had several discussions about identifying students in pre-K. And there are some of you that I've talked to, we've had the conversation that if they're coded in PEAMS as EE, we cannot identify, you can serve, but you can't identify. You can't identify a student as an EL until they're indicated as pre-K in PEAMS. That's when we can do the assessment, that's when the home language survey is valid. That home language survey filled out in the EE was not valid. Do we remember these conversations? Okay, so this has made it down to the state where it's created some confusion on the special education side because a lot of times this affects their kiddos in PPCD. So what is going to be coming, I don't have this in writing anywhere, this is just by voice, is that we are going to redefine in Chapter 89 BB, our chapter, what we mean by pre-K. And my understanding is that we are going to be allowed to identify those kiddos coded EE starting next year. Okay, that's a good thing. That's a good thing because some of the confusion with the home language surveys and all of that. So that should be coming in fall 2019. Now, there are some of you here that you have bilingual Head Start programs, and I have several districts that work with Olayinka Ojo, and it is Ojo, not Oho, I made that mistake. Even though she is bilingual, she's actually, I can't remember where she said she was from Nigeria, I believe. But she is our Region 10 Early Childhood Services consultant, and she works specifically or most prominently with Head Start and early childhood programs that are bilingual programs. So she's going to be in contact with some of you, and if you will please go to this Google form, if you have a Head Start program, or even a pre-K program that is bilingual, a dual language or bilingual pre-K program. Because what she wants to do is she wants to provide support and services to those early education programs, EE and pre-K, because a lot of you, for example, if you're using dual language, the dual language Gomez and Gomez model, it doesn't necessarily translate to pre-K. So she's actually working to design, to align that pre-K dual language, pre-K first grade, pre-K kinder, excuse me, with those dual language or bilingual programs in the upper grades or the later grades. So if you will go into this Google form, it's 5 short questions. 5 short questions. 3 of them are yes, no, and then really quickly, what do you need if you need anything? If you would take about 3 minutes to go into that form and fill in your responses so we can make sure we get you the support at those early grade levels as well. Yeah, hey Gina.
Is it only for dual language, bilingual, or ESL?
She's primarily focused on that bilingual dual language, primarily. Only because she's finding that the dual language models, bilingual models, are not translating as clearly into those early childhood. But I know she's willing to help with anything. She's really wants to help everyone and get you the resources that you need. Take a few minutes.
Okay, now I can hear.
It's great. You give me a fist of 5. This is, you're done, and how much more time you need. You're done, you can just give me a fist. You need a little bit more time, just show me fingers. Give me another couple of minutes.
take a break? I do have an activity that I do.
Okay. We are now, I'm going to turn this over to Veronica, who's going to talk about the new SLAR ELAR TEKS and the updates.
Okay, I do want to mention, so that I don't forget, that at the PLN later
On Friday.
on Friday, thank you, later this week, that I will be delving deep into it along with Sonia Reichert. So if you want to bring coordinators, instructional support, or even teachers to that, be happy to go over and answer any questions that come up. Okay, so as you are probably well aware, for grades K through 8, beginning in the 2019-2020 school year, we will be getting new SLAR and ELAR TEKS. And here is an overview of the changes, because I know, I think publicly what's been advertised in the trainings as ELAR, ELAR TEKS. But of course, many of our districts do bilingual dual language programs, or even bilingual programs where they have people that need to be in the know about the changes regarding also the Spanish language arts. We are more than happy to accommodate anyone who is in that boat and would like us to come out and do something for their Spanish language arts people, to give them more information on that. So the overview of changes. First of all, the integration of Figure 19 expectations into general student expectations for each grade level. So you see that integration of not only Figure 19, but then also organization of TEKS around the 7 strands and developing and sustaining foundational language skills, comprehension skills. This is all of the information that they go over in that ELAR TEKS training for curriculum writers. And one of the things that they bring up is how now the ELPs for the ELAR people are integrated as well into these 7 strands. So this has all been done to kind of streamline the TEKS, provide better vertical alignment across grade levels, and then horizontal alignment between English and Spanish with differentiation as appropriate for foundational language and composition skills, which I will go more into detail about here. So in the general introduction, the focus is on the interconnected nature, of listening, speaking, reading, and writing, and thinking in each and every strand. That's in paragraph 1. It also says that strands should be integrated for instructional purposes because they are recursive in nature and are of equal value. So they bring up that point. I like it because I guess it goes along with the general philosophy of the way that reading is just inherently different than other subject areas, and that everything's very fluid and integrated. So they apply earlier strands with greater depth and increasing complexity is what ends up happening. But from, very early on, kindergarten on, they start to introduce kids to these same strands just at a much more basic level so that they have that foundation by the time they get up into the upper grades. And then the idea that verbal engagement must be maximized is a big shift in these new TEKS. So that brings us to the Spanish language arts introduction. And I just highlighted here some differences and things that I thought were really important to point out because of some misconceptions that have been evident in the past. SLAR TEKS are neither translations nor modifications of the English language arts TEKS. So that's important. And even though there are a lot of things that can be aligned between ELAR and SLAR, there are also some very distinct differences. It emphasizes the closer letter-sound relationship in Spanish versus English. As you are probably well aware, Spanish is very much more transparent kind of language. So because of that, they focus on syllabication. They do not rely on sight words, so that when your kinder ELR set class is focused on learning sight words, your Spanish language learners will not be doing so much of that. Instead, the focus moves much more quickly into comprehension and fluency. So also it points out that the strength of the Spanish language foundation determines how well skills transfer as students develop their English language. And that cross-linguistic connections must be explicitly taught and emphasized through the strategic use of the student's first language. So that's all in the Spanish language arts introduction. Here's a quote from the introduction as well that I particularly like. It says that emergent bilinguals are often defined by their perceived deficits. However, research has shown that bilinguals develop a unique interdependent system in which languages interconnect to increase linguistic functionality. So it goes along with that whole mindset shift that needs to happen, that our bilingual students, our English learners, are in no way deficient, that in fact, this can be a very powerful tool for enrichment, the fact that they are becoming bilingual, and that if they already come to school with one language, they're halfway there. So just a quick overview of the Strand Comparison. So the new integrated strands versus the current strands. You can see we kind of color-coded them to show the more alive kind of nature that that we're hoping that these new integrated strands will contain. Number one, developing and sustaining foundational skills, where you have a lot of your like phonics, phonetic awareness, those basic fundamental things that go along with reading. And then number two, comprehension skills. Number three, response skills. And you can see the big focus there on developing those skills. And number four focuses on multiple genres. 5, author's purpose and craft. 6, composition. And 7, inquiry and research. So figure 19 hasn't gone away. It's just been built into the new integrated strands. The ELPs haven't gone away. They've just been built into the new integrated strands. So I really like this slide. This is from the presentation that we do when we provide training on the new ELR SLAR TEKS for curriculum writers, because it really hits at the heart of what we want happening. So what is the teacher doing versus what is the teacher, versus what is the student doing, sorry. And then what is the teacher saying versus what is the student saying? Because again, the focus is on building that oral language development and making it to where, in order to achieve the objective, students have to make sure that they're able to state it. So it's putting that spotlight on what is the language objective, or what is the language objective part of the standard objective, if that makes sense. So, okay, and just a few questions to consider in terms of what questions might need to be, I'm repeating myself, what questions need to be considered in order to begin revising or writing curriculum if we are presenting this to a team of curriculum writers, versus what will educators need to understand when implementing these new strands if we're sharing this information with teachers that have to be able to do kind of what we're talking about here, in their classroom. And what shifts in practice are needed to be addressed, whether it's just our overall idea of English learners and our understanding of them as students, to just general practices in the classroom. And I believe that that's it for my piece, yes.
So there's not going to be a separate ELPS document. It will all be embedded within general ed.
There will still be a separate ELPS document. We're going to actually talk about that in a minute.
Yes, this is for ELAR, yeah, so you still have subjects like math, science, and the rest of them. For the reading, yeah, it's all integrated in there, but the ELPS document does exist because of the other, subject areas where we still need to think about that.
Okay. Yeah. There's a question.
Yes.
The Spanish introduction is not available to access.
Okay, I don't know if it's being edited, but for the trainings, I know we have a link to it, and I also have it to where I've taken out those pieces of the Spanish introduction that I wanted to point out that are different, and it's available like in a Word, I guess, what are they called? In Google, they're called docs. Thank you. It's not a Word document, it's a doc. But we do have that, and again, I'm not sure they should be on the TEA website, but if it's for some reason not working, maybe they've taken it down for an edit or something. Yes.
As you can see, there are many changes. I know that the ELAR and SLAR have changed since when I was a teacher. And so if you need assistance, please do not hesitate to contact Veronica, or you can shoot me an email, or you can fill out the district request form for services. And our SLAR team is working jointly with our ELAR team. In fact, they're presenting together if you need that resource or service, because I know that there's not much information out there.
Thank you. Any other questions? Very good. And again, I hope you join us or you're able to send somebody to the PLN where I can go more into depth and spend more time.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, a little BEA. Get to talk money. It's ironic because I don't have any. Student loans. So there's been updates to the BEA guidance as well. This is actually hyperlinked. The allowable use of BEA funds has been hyperlinked. I think a lot of you were kind of shocked to hear with the revision of Chapter 89. A lot of districts have been setting aside that 10% of their BEA for professional development consistently if they were filing exceptions and waivers. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh no, if you're filing an exception and waiver, that's 20%. And that threw some people for a loop. I actually had my cohort in Region 11 call me because I told her, budget's already done, people are struggling with this. And she goes, I know what you're talking about now. She says, Fort Worth ISD has 10% of their BEA is $6.5 million. So they had their $6.5 million set aside. They did not have $13 million. So what we believe, I think there was enough pushback from some of those larger districts with the commissioner that the commissioner has decided this year he is holding at that 10% for this year and this year only. We do not know what the guidance will be for next year. So to clarify, if you filed an exception and or a waiver or both, you're obligated to spend 10% of your BEA. You are not required to spend 20 for this year only. Now, if you already have, you've not done anything wrong. But that was some clarification if you have not. So if you will go ahead, or you don't have to now, but that has been updated in that document on the TEA website, which that link is to. Do you have any questions about that? Now, I had a question earlier. Joel and I were talking about, well, what is Title III PD compared to BEA PD? And there's not really a cut and dry answer for that. It's really in your district, what have you been doing and what funds do you have available? So we know that if we paid for PD with other funding sources in previous years, we cannot now supplant with Title III. In those cases, you would probably go to your BEA. There are other PDs that are maybe new. I know there's a few districts that are they're implementing GLAD, and they've never done it before. It's a new program, and they may choose to use their Title III for that because it's never been used before, or BEA. That would be a district LEA decision. Questions about that? Okay, TELPAS and TELPAS Alt. These are linked as well, so you can either use the URL, the QR code, excuse me, or these are hyperlinked, but I want to go ahead and take you to the resources. TELPAS the regular, as I call him, that's his royal name. TELPAS the regular, there really has not been too many changes. The resources are all there. I've had a few requests for, oh, are you going to do TELPAS training? We actually don't really do that training outside of the district testing coordinator training. We talk about it a little bit in our LPAC decision making. And when we talk about our upcoming events, we have a couple more LPAC decision making kind of review sessions. They're the exact same as what we did in October. But I do know we have a few new people who have joined staffs late or want a refresher. So that'll be available. But really all of your presentations or trainings are listed on this website. So if TELPAS has been subcontracted from your testing coordinator to you, as it so happens, you can go on here if you're responsible for training your staff and use these PowerPoints. So they're available for you to use. They're PowerPoint. They're also in PDF. There are other training resources on there. There's the ELPS TELPAS Connection. So all of those resources are there for you if you're turning that training around. Now, interestingly, TELPAS Alt is evolving as we speak. I find new updates all the time. As a matter of fact, somebody just mentioned something about, was it Real Voice? Was that what it was? For those students who are, there may be an option for students who are deaf, and I'm going to be researching that, and I'll send that out on the listserv if I find out there's another option for that. TELPAS Alt, there's no formal training. It is all based on the PowerPoints that are on this website. And they are all loaded as of the last time I checked. When we first met, they were not. Now you have the blueprints, the requirements, the instructional resources, and PowerPoints for each domain under the TELPAS alternate training resources. So if you go there, there's now, they're supposedly, I think they're very short. They just uploaded all of them, I want to say about 2 weeks ago, so I haven't gone in and checked them yet. But I was told they were about to be about 10 to 15 minutes per domain. So the teacher who will be responsible for administering TELPAS Alt will go in and look at these. It could be led by the testing coordinator or the special education department. I would suggest that you work with them just so you're familiar, even though it is more than likely going to be the special education teacher that regularly works with those kiddos that is going to be administering the TELPAS Alt. One of the questions that came up is, do they have to do online basic training and calibration? No. This is the only training there for TELPAS Alt. Now, if they're doing TELPAS the regular, then yes. But if they're only administering TELPAS Alt, this is the training that they will go through. Any questions about that? Are y'all excited about TELPAS Alt? Should be excited. It's something you don't have to do necessarily. That's a positive. But on that note, I want to make sure that this is out there, that you're working with your SPED department with those second graders. For students in grades 3 through 12, they've already been identified in our LPAC as being STAR Alt 2 takers. They automatically get TELPAS Alt. You can fill out the document if you want to or not. I believe that's really an LEA decision because I think the document says, the TELPAS Alt document says, they've already qualified for STAR Alt. You don't have to fill this out. But some SPED departments like to have that extra documentation, so talk with them. However, you have to have the second graders on your radar because you have to have an ARD meeting to identify them as TELPAS Alt takers. That needs to happen fairly quickly. For a smaller district, that might not, you might only have a handful, 1 or 2. For larger districts, that might be quite a few students. So this is critical. I don't know if your SPED department is aware of this. They should be, but make sure that this gets rolling because the TELPAS window opens soon. Believe it or not. So you want to have those students identified prior to that. Any question in the TELPAS world? Hi, Graham.
I haven't looked through all the TELPAS materials, but do we enter the results online, like TELPAS? Is there a grading roster?
These are all very good questions. I can answer one of them. The other one, I'm not so sure about. Is there a rating roster? Their roster is going to look a little differently, I think. They have the documents because it's an observational tool, and I believe that's already posted. Technically, if you go into the district and campus testing coordinator manual, the person who is entering those, it is supposed to be the district and campus testing coordinator that enters the scores into TAMS. That's how it's written. I can't quote it, but I know it's there. So it's the district and campus testing coordinator that are responsible for inputting the LPAC or TELPAS grader will fill out that document, but it's the district and campus testing coordinator that inputs those scores into TAMS. And that's in the DCCR. Sam, hi.
Okay, to clarify, for TELPAS, for the kids that are doing all or have this course, they also have to have an LPAC. This is the only.
Well, you're going to LPAC you're going to LPAC assessment decision making. So you're LPACing any kiddo that's taking assessment. You only have to fill out the TELPAS designated supports document if they're receiving a designated support on TELPAS. And that's going to be rare because these would be kiddos that would be served with another department. So that's a very good question, and that was clarified. I asked TEA about that. We got a new form. If you were at the assessment training, we talked about the form because they like their forms. So we have one, the STAR designated support form, and then we now have a TELPAS designated support form that looks identical. Bilingual ESL did not know that assessment was doing another document, so they have advised that you only have to fill out that TELPAS designated support document if a child is receiving designated supports on TELPAS. So that's going to be very few of your kids. The majority of your students will not be receiving supports on TELPAS. You only have to do your STAR accommodated designated support document. Hopefully that gives you a little sense of relief. Is that clear? Yes, ma'am.
So if they're receiving a STAR designated support, you do not, if I'm hearing you correctly, have to do it twice by filling out a TELPAS designated support.
You do not have to fill out a TELPAS designated, and keep it separate from STAR for just a second. You only have to do the TELPAS designated support if they're receiving a designated support on TELPAS. You should have a STAR designated support for every kid taking assessment, because even if they're not getting one, that should be documented on that form. Or some of you have online systems and it's going to be documented in your online system that they're receiving no designated supports. So you're going to fill out and meet on every kid who's taking an assessment. But you don't have to do that extra TELPAS paper unless they are receiving one. And that was verbal guidance from TEA because there was some concern about that. Yes, ma'am.
Is that only applying for accommodation? Doesn't need support alone, or do you have it if we're a joint decision?
That is an excellent question. In the past, we've talked about it being separate. The new guidance is that everything's collaborative. I call it the 3 C's in collaboration, conjunction, and coordination. So you'll see one of those 3 words. If a child is served by multiple committees, so R, 504, RTI, GT, and EL, or bilingual ESL, you're going to be doing it, God bless you, you're going to do it in coordination. And my suggestion, actually, this is very logistical, practical suggestion. The ART meeting meets once a year. So I would actually take those STAR designated supports document into that ART meeting with you And when they determine what accommodations or designated supports the child's going to get, I would mark on that paper per SPED, or per ARD, per 504, per RTI, so that when you then come back as a committee, LPAC committee, in January, February, you know what decisions those other committees have met. Because the guidance, and this is written in the STAR accommodation decision-making guide, to sum it up, every committee keeps track of every other committee's decision. So if you're serving that child, you have to keep track of any other decisions made about that child by any other committee, and they're under the obligation to do the same thing. Now, here's kind of something to think about. You can't take the SPED IEP or SPED ARD document and drop it in that LPAC folder, because those are highly confidential. They're not even in the KIM folders. So you're going to have to document those decisions by hand, more than likely, or put them into your computer system if you have an online system. So hopefully that will help you as you meet those things and you just kind of get in that practice of documenting it. Then when you come to your assessment meeting, you don't have to go running and saying, hey, what did you guys decide? You know what it is. And you participated in the decision making in that ARD meeting or 504 RTI, hopefully as well. And just to reiterate, we're going to have a list of upcoming events. I have 3 follow-up LPAC decision-making. I got some comments that it went too fast, I think, for some of our newer people that haven't been doing this as long. So I wanted to make sure we had an opportunity to revisit, now that we're closer to the testing. It is the exact same training as it was in the fall. I have made it a little easier to navigate. Some of you still have access to that folder, but they're coming up, I believe they're in February. There's one in Mesquite, one in Plano, and one in Allen. Tried to find places that have large venues so we could do fewer of them, but those are already on the calendar. If you want to, if you're new, brand new, you can go ahead. You came in January, welcome. There's a few of you in here. Hold on. Hang on tight, white knuckle it to the end. Or if you just want to revisit again, because questions have come up, scenarios have come up, please come. It'll be 9 to 12, but I will make myself available for as long as, I think it actually wrapped up early. So I will stay for as long as anybody needs if you have questions. Afterwards, we can do lunch and stay there and talk through any scenario that you have. Okay, so this is actually, when you had mentioned, I think it was Gina or Lacey, I can't remember, had mentioned, oh no, it's over here. I mentioned about the ELPS document, the 74.4, and this is why I knew we still have the document, because they're revising them right now. So some of you got, I believe I sent out something from TEA if you're interested in being on the committee, or it will be coming if it hasn't gotten to you already, revising and revisiting the ELPS. They are going to be revising the ELPS standards, but it will stay in that 74.4 because of the other content areas, but it is being integrated into English Language Arts, which is fantastic, and SLAR. The other thing they're also doing are they're developing new ESL Educator Standards. Now this has a big impact. One, ESL certification. My understanding is the test is as easy as it's going to get. It's not easy. They're getting ready to move into a more challenging, more rigorous test in, I believe, the next year. I don't know if it's going to be based on these new ESL standards or not. There will be probably an invitation to join this committee as well coming from TEA. So the expectation is that these are going to be in effect in 2020. So of course we're trying to get our teachers certified at this point anyway, but this might be another reason to encourage them to go ahead and get that done. We don't know what it's going to look like when they change the test. Any questions about this? That's a good question. The question was, moving forward, when you renew, are you grandfathered in? I believe that you are. And I don't think you're going to have, no, I don't believe they would have you take it again, because they've never done that with any other certificate that I'm aware of. I only have like 2 certificates that I have to renew. My other 5 are lifetime, and I have to remember those 2. And it's all about the money. I know what it is. It's not like I forgot what I learned. Okay, so we have some new, I'm so excited about this. We have some new TE bilingual ESL resources. Have you seen the parent brochures? They are fabulous, and they're for the parents, but I will tell you, this is the ELLTX.org page, It is outside of TEA, but it is run by TEA. The English Learner Support page. If you go to, it's actually on the very front. It has brochures, folletos or fletos? Fletos. Interestingly, folletos. I said that wrong, sorry, folletos, I knew that. Interestingly, they're in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese, but they didn't put the Vietnamese up there. I don't know why. But if you go into these brochures, remember the old blue ones? So there's one for bilingual, and there's one for ESL. This is a parent resource, but I actually shared this at my ESL prep training on Saturday because it takes the whole process and puts it on a one-page infographic. The whole, from identification to service to reclassification to monitoring on a one-page infographic. So parents can understand the process in its entirety. And again, I shared this with those in my class, and I would suggest, if you're doing LPAC training or LPAC committee, this is a great way of explaining to them the process. Then the second page is a narrative. It's a one-page narrative about the types of programs, the services that they'll receive, very, very concise, very, very clear. Again, written for parents, but I find that this is a great way of explaining the process to anyone who's not an LPAC, actually, or new LPAC members. So these are a new resource that are available on the ELTX. So we are now under the guidance that when LPAC makes a recommendation for programming, in the past, if they recommended bilingual, we gave them the information about the bilingual program. We're under the guidance now that we are to give them information on any program we offer. But if we offer bilingual and ESL, we have to give them the parent the information about the bilingual program and the ESL program, even though we recommend bilingual because the parent has the option of choosing ESL. So these, I would suggest starting to use these instead of those old brochures, just because they're so much more concise and clear, and just staple your ESL bilingual to that parent or the LPAC parent permission form and let them look at that and then make their programming decision. And you probably have already seen this. I've sent it out whenever they do an update. But if you ever want to check, I will continue to send out. When they update it, they let us know, and then I send it forward to you. And Carly's been doing a great job with this. If you go to the TEA Bilingual ESL website, there's an FAQ for English learners and LPAC. And what they've done is if they keep the questions they've already answered on there, which is great because there were a lot of years we didn't get things in writing. And this gives us the information in writing we can refer back to. It has the date it was answered. If it's been revised or added, they put it, she goes ahead and marks it in red as being updated or revised, so you always know that you have the most current information on those FAQs. And it's broken down by subject areas, so you can go in and look. But I read this every time it comes out, and I've learned things. And some of the clarification they've been giving through this document is fantastic. So that's where you can find it. Again, in the presentation, it's hyperlinked, or it's on the TEA Bilingual ESL webpage about halfway down. Okay, the new assessment for EL identification. Yeah, we don't know. I should have had a little bit longer pregnant pause there. We're scared and excited. So I've called, I think several of the service centers are like, hey, our people want to know what's happening, and we're just getting, we don't know. They're still in the process. We are going to that one assessment. We know that's a non-negotiable starting in 2019. Your roundup, if you're doing a roundup in April or May, you use what you're using now. So this does not go into effect until enrollment in August. So hopefully that'll clarify a little bit. Also, I've gotten this question a little bit, or I've gotten this question a couple of times. If you are doing pre-K roundup, how early can you have pre-K roundup? Per the student attendance handbook, you can have it no earlier than April 1st. You cannot bring in pre-K roundup before April 1st. So the guidance has been, because they're building their budgets. A lot of you are budget season right now, so I've asked about that. The assessment hasn't been selected. The guidance is to budget for what you typically spend with a little padding. I should have quoted that whole thing because that's exactly what I was told when I asked. So budget for what you already have with a little padding. I know that you love the specifics. Any questions about this part? Trust me, as soon as I know, you are the next people to know. If it comes through at midnight, I'll send it out to you.
Jennifer, you have a question?
Oh, yes, yes, ma'am.
Are there any plans to do some sort of cooperative service with whatever publisher is chosen so that we have support?
I am thinking, because I actually had somebody ask about Woodcock Munoz, and at this point, we can't host because there's so many tests you can choose from. And I was actually kind of thinking about this morning. I do believe when they go to the one test, I believe that I would hope that would be part of it. Because the question is, right now, you have all these tests that you can choose from, so it's not feasible for us to be able to provide the training. It comes from the vendor, because you purchase from a vendor. When we go to one test for the state, the question is there going to be, basically, are we going to be able to provide the training? Is the training going to come through us? I don't know. I'm hoping that it will, because I don't know how one company can do training for the entire state unless they do it through a venue like this. But as soon as we know, we'll let you know. And of course, I'm thinking they've got to let us know by July in order to get the training. Being recorded. Put it out in the universe. June, we'll go for June. Okay, if you have not signed up, if you're not getting emails from me, you're not on our listserv, there's a way to do this on the back end. I had a few people email me, and I'm a little embarrassed to say, well, guys, I need you to go to the website and click on the button because I don't know how to add you from the back end. But if you're new or you're not on the listserv and would like to be, if you'll click here or scan it and just click the big orange button on the top that says join our listserv, you will get compliance information from me, Rosetta Stone from Enrique, you get programming information from Cynthia. That's what we use to send that information out to you. Give you a minute if you need to get on there.
Hey, Jennifer, can I get the mic before y'all go on break?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what we're going to redo.
Yeah, I know, right? Before you go on break, just wanted to share some great news. We have been awarded 2 TEA grants. It's highly competitive, so I'm very proud of that. One of them is the ELs with Multiple Needs grant. So we'll actually be creating resources and materials for TEA, and it's going to be joint collaboration with EL staff, special ed staff, RTI staff, and then also GT staff. The other one is the ESL 154 grant, and so we're actually going to be creating resources for the state, including podcasts, webinars, online modules, and then simulations online. And then the other 2 are actually collaboration with Region 20, and they're for digital resources for ELs. I just wanted to share that news because there's a lot of great things happening, so great things coming ahead.
I call that job security.
Okay, let's take about a 15-minute break. It is 10:20 on the dot, so we will reconvene at 10:35 and go through our local updates. And then we have a presentation by Edugents when we close. So who does this?
We don't know. I know, right? This is the offer. It's kind of just a list of them. So it's not actually right. It's a bunch of tiny emails. Really? Yeah, like people have already. Is our region
like regional training. So we're trying to make it bigger and small, but we're trying to build it. And there's a few that are set already that like we're not participating in the but they're ready. So they're already asking questions. They're so.
What? And I opened a tab. Get ready.
Hello, how are you? Good to see you. Thank you. I like your hair color. Fantastic. I would you're not supposed to show. Is that the course of innovation? It's in there for so, and I'm hearing that the course is not available, but we are offering jobs to this. That's great. It's well, it's in the TA, software, so and it was this thing.
Relief needs numbers from Plano ISD.
She told me, she told me that it's not there, but I found it in the. So
Sorry.
Yeah, so we'll keep digging. So
Yeah,
if you hear anything, I'll let you know.
Right.
What? She does. She has so much to do. That way.
Okay, that's fine. But yeah, you don't have to. Yeah. Hey, hi. Yeah. It will be and you'll be writing on the website because I think it closes. So no, that's absolutely fine. Thank you. You're welcome. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So we're going to share some Region 10 and local updates with you. First of all, here are the offers that we have that are coming up. We have more ESL prep. We have them during the week. We've got at least one Saturday a month. I want to say we were running 3 sessions this last Saturday simultaneously. And we do have one more Saturday in January here at Abrams this Saturday. So I will be here bright early. If you have anybody that has not, if you either taken the test, not been successful, or would like the prep, people, it's very helpful. You can also request it as a district through our PD request form, which you can find on our webpage. We also have coming up, I believe, in the 3rd week in January, effective early childhood education for the young EL. That is the wonderful Miss Veronica and Angie, no, one of our sped people, Andrea Mitchell, wonderful Andrea Mitchell. She's fantastic. They will be presenting that. There's a morning session and an afternoon session. I have a session coming up at the end of the month, Title III and BEA Nuts and Bolts, where we go through. If you are interested in this, or if your federal programs or your money person would like to come, please. It's a half-day session, 3 hours. Enhancing instructional opportunities for immigrant students. This will be our special topics in our March session in the afternoon. It is a new resource from TEA that I'll be sharing with you. Our PLN, we have one coming up this Friday, and I believe there's 2 more on the books, I believe, or 1 more, not sure. Charter forums, if you're one of our charter schools, we have the charter forums, which gives you a chance to come together with other charter schools, because you have some very unique scenarios that are not faced by our districts, and it allows you kind of to work through some of those things in specific to your needs. We also have quarterly, we have one in March, and we have the last one in May. We're going to try something different for next year. I was hoping to have next year's dates for you today, but I think actually Lori is working on getting those dates set as we speak. The May session, that's kind of an awkward time of year because you're doing end of the year, closing out all of those things. So I talked with Cynthia and we decided that we were going to do it in June. I don't know if it's the 2nd week in June or the 3rd week in June next year, because that'll get you over the hump. And then we can talk about your program evaluation coming up, will be coming up, so you can talk about that. So hopefully that'll be more convenient for all of you. Plus those last 2 sessions were crammed together. Does that seem like that's going to work a little better for some of you? Some of you may be on contract, but directors, you're never on contract, at least in my experience. So that will be next year. This year it's still March and May, but we'll set those out. As soon as those locations and dates are set, I will be sending them to you. Yes, ma'am. Yes, the quarterly meeting. I'm also holding a new ESL bilingual director, or new-ish ESL bilingual director meetings. I believe, is it next Monday or Tuesday in McKinney? Next Monday. It's a very informal setting for those of you that are brand new, because this is a lot of information in a short time. People have been doing this, we're just kind of going over the highlights, but it gives you a chance to ask more in-depth questions in a more relaxed environment. There's not a presentation. We just kind of take it wherever you need it to go, and the things that are new and procedures and policies. So that's for any new or new-ish director, and you can register for that for next week. I told you about the LPAC decision-making. They're in February, I want to say the 2nd and 3rd week. If you want an update or review, the end of the year LPAC trainings are already on the calendar. They start in April and go into May. There are going to be changes, because what is TEA without changes? There are going to be some changes in processes that we have been doing for years and years and years. For example, one of the big changes that's coming is, and I alluded to this in our last meeting, ESSA requires that we send parent notification of progress within the first 30 days of school. Our process is at the end of school. My understanding is they're going to align those, so you're not sending it out twice, so that notification of progress will be going out at the beginning of the year. Now, I already can see some logistical issues with that. Students that move over the summer, who's responsible for sending that letter, etc. I've kind of opened that conversation with TEA, so we'll get more guidance for that, which I should have. If not, we'll wing it at the end of the year meetings. So those are on the calendar. There's a program manual work session in the summer. If you want to update your program manual or you need to write a program manual, it's really a work session. I provide you with some examples, and you can just come in and work together on either revising or creating your manual. And I'm there as a resource for you. And also the program evaluation work session, that's also this summer. If per state and federal statute, you must do a program evaluation per federal every 2 years, state rule every year. It is due to the board before November 1st of the following year. And in this session, we look at what the ESSA requirements are, what the state requirements are, so that you only have to do one evaluation and merge all of those things together. I have several examples from other districts, low-end examples to very high
high end, like we have a department that puts this together, example, and we will work through that program evaluation session and what you need to have in there and the data that you need to have in those evaluations. So we're supposed to have all our data this year, right? And then we have lots of other things on the calendar coming up. Again, you can request PD as well, but these are things that you can already go on and register for. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I'm hoping that we go back to the first scenario where we have all our sessions scores in time.
In theory.
So are we saying that we would exit students by the end of the year, but we still set in the progress reports until the fall?
That is my understanding.
Why?
Because ESSA requires it to be at the beginning of the year. We can't change federal law, but we can adjust it so we don't have to do it twice. And probably what's going to happen is you'll close out all your paperwork. It is just a matter of sending it home at the beginning of the year. Well, parent permission, you only have to do it once, unless, parent permission for exit. It will probably be, that will probably still be at the end of the year. I don't know that they haven't told us exactly yet. I'm assuming that still has to be at the end of the year because this was the only year that they removed that PEAMS blocker. So you got a warning, not a fatal. If you exited after the start of the school year, that is supposed to go back into place next year where you can't exit once the school year has started. So I think the exit will have to happen. And then it might be that then they need a parent notification. In that scenario, you might have to send it twice. But I'll let you know as soon as they kind of work through that. You're welcome. Any other questions about things that are coming up? I have a question, and this is I'm thinking about it now, so I'm gonna get a read of the room. Beginning of the year, LPAC framework training. This year, it was a little later because we didn't get our training until July because we had to wait until Chapter 89 passed. Typically, we get our training in June. If that is the case this year, what we ran into is some of you start August 1st, some of you start the second week, some of you start the third week, some of you are on contract, some of you are off contract. How many of you would be able to attend and would like to attend LPAC framework training the last 2 weeks in July? Okay, so might be a good idea to at least have 1 or 2 set up in the end of July. When we get into August, what is the best, is it that first week, second week? What is the best week in August to do it? The first 2? Okay. Just trying to think, I'm trying to figure out the best way to make sure it's convenient for all of you. So a couple in the last weeks in July and the first and second week in August, and probably follow up with one in September for anybody who comes in late. Okay. Thank you for that. Sorry, that was a little aside. Who are our mentor teachers? Is this Cynthia? Can't remember. So we have empowering new teachers. We have a mentor teacher. Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody asked me to drop this in here. Siobhan LaHoya. She does this training, the mentor teacher training. It's a 2-day PD. If you're interested in this, day 1 is February 5th, day 2 is February 20th. So PLC leaders, mentors, anybody that might be interested in this is an option for you coming up. This is a new offering, and she's really excited about it. She's fantastic. Now we've got some Rosetta Stone updates. Amazing.
Not BBMAS this time, right? Not accountability this time. Wanted to have a break. So Rosetta Stone, we had the 3rd submission is passed. What was the submission? Last week, actually. So I'm extending the submission window until tomorrow morning because there were some technical problems during that window. So anyways, here is the basic information for this 3rd part of the year with Rosetta Stone. The licenses, in case you are among the districts that submitted all the information last week, many charter schools and many ISDs submitted that information. The licenses are going to be activated on February 1st. So it's not next week. We always collect all the purchase orders and everything a month before the activation period. Now, what else? Something else that I wanted to talk to you about is the fourth submission. It's going to happen, the window is March 4 to March 8. I believe March 8 is Friday, right? So the cost is going to go down because it's a prorated cost, it's $48. And now each submission period has a purpose. Usually the fourth period, because I had this question last week, they were asking me why would I need to purchase that in April or for April, because the next one activates April 1st. Usually it's because the advantage of having these activations is that they run all the way to September 30th. Meaning that if each student has one account, hopefully that's happening, right? So especially for your newcomers students, right, that they need to keep up with that practice and with that practicing with the software. The software you can log in from anywhere in the world, from any platform that you have. So when the school is over, then you're gonna have what? June and July, right? You're gonna be out and they can practice even August. So you will have your newcomers practicing over the summer. So that's the intention for the next submission, just in case you have the same questions like some directors that emailed me last week. The cost again is $48. We are still receiving purchase orders, POs for this submission window, just in case you're still processing those. The cost is $63 until tomorrow morning or afternoon, right? Well, morning because I have to submit it afternoon, right? Because usually we have to submit all this way in advance because we have to get approval here at Region 10 first before we submit it to Rosetta Stone, and then it has to come back, and it's many steps. Usually it's 3 weeks that this paperwork has to go through different approval systems. All right, so any questions in regards to Rosetta Stone and any technical issues that you had? Nope, everything is good. Remember, these submissions are just to add licenses to what you already have. So they're not replacing, that you don't have to pay again. Whatever you purchased in the past will be active until September 30th. Okay?
I've had a couple of districts that are not used to getting newcomers or science students, some of the smaller districts that have been getting them. And I have a list of resources that I can share via email. And